Welcome to Beyond the Page, the official podcast of Choice, the magazine of professional coaching, where we bring you amazing insights and in-depth features that you just won't find anywhere else. I'm your host, Gary Schleifer, and I'm excited to expand your learning as we dive into the latest articles, have a chat with the brilliant authors behind them, like our friend Julie today, and uncover the learnings that are transforming the coaching world. Join our vibrant community of coaching professionals as we explore groundbreaking ideas, share expert tips and techniques, and make a real difference in our clients' lives, which is what we all want to do. This is your go-to resource for all things coaching, so let's dive in. In today's episode, I'm speaking with personal development, career coach, and author Julie Vander Meulen, who is the author of an article in our latest issue. Oh, I don't know if you can see it, but I've got it here if you're looking. A livelihood from coaching. Feasible or fanciful? This article is entitled, Are You Ready? Recognizing, cultivating, and navigating a client's readiness for coaching. A little bit about Julie. She's an MA, the founder of Own Your Life, and is a trailblazer in personal development, career coaching, and digital branding, but just for ambitious women. Oh, I'm sure she'll do it for an ambitious guy like me. With a blend of entrepreneurial flair and heartfelt authenticity, she empowers women to harness their narratives, ensuring they shine in the digital age. Julie, thank you so much for joining me again and for writing for us again and for our
Hi,
audience.
Gary. It's my pleasure. I'm so
Great
happy
to
to
have
be
you
back.
here. Yes. Well, I always reread the article, like it's about the fifth time I read it. And every time I read articles, I get something else in it. But what really stood out for me is, um, well, the whole article is about the readiness. And I want to ask you, is it about you talk about the readiness of the client, but how much is it, what's the percentage of readiness that the coach has to have?
Mm. It's so interesting that you asked me this question because as I was preparing for this today, I was thinking I really need to talk about the readiness of the coach as well, because I don't think that I talked about it so much in the article. I think it's both, Gary. I think
Yeah.
that sometimes, if I go towards the coach's readiness, sometimes what we interpret as a client's unreadiness, or I don't know what the proper term would be,
That sounds
sometimes
right.
it's
Yeah.
about it's about us as coaches, that there's some resistance in the person that we coach, and we get scared or we don't know how to deal with it. And so sometimes it's about us not being ready as well,
Yeah.
and not knowing how to cope with that. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's both.
Well, and then I'm going to use this as a stepping off point to add to that. Stepping off, add. What are we doing? I don't know, but we'll just say it. Recognizing a client's readiness extends far beyond their digital and declaration of wanting change. It's about discerning the depth of their commitment. So even in that, there's two words that suggest that the coach has to be able to recognize and able to discern. So, what else comes to mind when you think of coach readiness?
Mm, I think in what I said there, in the discerning and so on, I think a coach needs to be able to both listen to their client deeply, and also at the same time not take everything that they say at face value, something like that.
Right.
That we can both deeply trust that the person in front of us knows what they're doing, and that they're the person who knows what's going on with them. And at the same time, we can also be aware of our own patterns and everyone's patterns, that sometimes we are blind to some things. And I think that's part of the readiness, that we need to be in that, I don't know, that magic spot in between of,
Yeah.
I fully trust you and I really believe in what you're saying. I'm really listening to you. And at the same time, I've also done this a couple of times, and I've noticed that sometimes we think we know something, but there might be something behind it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and thank you, because the word that was on my lips too was listening. So,
Mhm.
and I mean, it's just being your coach self, like doing
Yeah.
all the things you would do in a coaching session. I've spoken to so many people, and I'm sure you feel the same way, that any conversation when you have a prospect or a client is a coaching conversation. It's not about you,
Mm.
it's about them. What do they want? And to your other point about listening, but also, and you said this in the article, reflecting back not just what I hear, but what I sense. And you
Yeah.
also say what you don't hear, right?
Yeah.
And again, that's coaching, right? Kind of reading
Exactly.
the room, reading what's going on, nonverbal cues as well, if you get to see them, that sort of stuff. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
And I'd say also, I think it's part of it. It's also voicing what you see. I think that sometimes the mistake we can do is like analyze our client and not mirror what's going on, and
yeah,
then it becomes the whole thing because you have your own agenda. But I think for me at least, I mean that's how I see it. That if I notice something, if I'm coaching you right now and you're telling me that you're super ready and I don't know what, and you're constantly checking your phone, you're looking at me like this from behind, all these different things, and or
mhm,
you're constantly repeating the same types of words and you're not diving deeper, then it's my responsibility or my job in this co-creation that we have to also say that, to say, hey Gary, I noticed today you seem a little bit different than other times, like how do you feel, like I
yeah,
had the impression your body language was a bit different, and then up to you to see what comes up for you. And I find, I don't know about you in your coaching practice, but I find that either the person will be a bit shocked and think like, oh, I didn't notice that I was doing that, and they feel whatever is coming up,
right.
or they don't feel it but it activates something and they're like, no, I'm here. I'm here, I'm going to be here from the beginning.
Yeah. I think my best example is one of my clients that we get to a point now where we're having a coaching conversation and they'll say something and right away they'll look at me and go, yeah, yeah, I know. I've got to go into that one. Right. Like we're already at that point where it's, I don't even have to say anything. I just have to give her, I just go, mm-hmm. And it's like,
That's really
all right, okay, yeah, 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 and then we get into it. But that's right, and that, in a way, is a sense of mirroring as well. Are
yeah.
there any other situations that you've seen where there's a disparity between a client's stated goals and their actions, and how would you handle that?
I think that the example that I just took is one of the
Yeah,
there
one of the
was one
main ones
time.
I would think of. Yeah,
Yeah, there was one time where it was a new client, so it was a meet and greet, and this woman by message, so I had never seen her before. She was super excited, so I came in. That's also a lesson. It was also a lesson for me. I came in, having expectations without realizing that she would be super open, super ready, super everything, and it took me about 5 minutes to realize that am I like there's a gap between my expectation and what's happening, but also what she's saying and what she's doing. So there were some of those nonverbal cues, but there was also the main thing for me is it helped me realize that the repetition thing that I was mentioning before,
mhm,
that when
yeah,
someone is stuck in a loop, and also they get a bit defensive. So this woman at some point told me, so she was constantly saying the same things to all sorts of questions that I was asking. There were very different questions, and she
right,
was always replying in a way which was a bit off.
yeah,
um, but I was feeling confused, because I had those expectations to begin with. I couldn't be exactly in the moment. And then at some point I thought, okay, let me just say that, to say like, hey, are you getting what you came in for? Because I have this, I don't know, I have the sensation that
um,
maybe this is useful for you. And she told me two things. The first thing was like, yeah, this is interesting, but where are my solutions? And I was like, oh, okay.
here we go. Yeah,
So she came in with her own expectations, which were, I'm gonna come here and I'm excited to get fixed solutions. And that also gave me then the opportunity to say, well, so that was one thing, to understand what do they really want, like you said in the
right,
beginning.
yep,
Fast, even when you're confused, to go to the point, interrupt the whole pattern and be like, okay, what is it that you want? Like, why are we here exactly? Not stay stuck in our head. Um, and yeah, and after that, that allowed me to say, this is what you're saying, that you want solutions and you want to be present and so on. But what I'm seeing is I have the sensation that you don't want to be here. And that really took her back. And she was like, no, I want to be here. I was like, are you sure? Because when I see you, I don't know you, but when I see you, you seem a bit like, like I don't feel like we are really connecting right now. And so
yeah.
I don't want to be wasting your time. So if you want to stop, we can stop. There's no problem. And that like really shifted her. She became like super smiling. She became the person that I had seen in the email. So yeah,
That's
I think
funny.
pattern interrupt is a big thing for me.
Right. Yeah.
Is
Yeah. Yeah, well, and it goes to mirroring and reflecting back what the client's saying in there, because how many times I've said to a client, it's like, so I'll reflect back something and they go, I said that, and I'm like, "Mhm.
Mm,
Wow, I didn't even realize it, right?" So one of our
right.
jobs. I have to stop and ask this one question. So is client readiness something before they hire you, or after, like after the contract is started?
I would say it's all the way. It's like it's
Yeah.
everywhere. But it's different. I think for how I work, that free meet and greet session that I have before I take on a client is
Mhm.
really my way in the background of assessing that. Are they ready? Do they feel ready? Do they want to embark on this or not? And do I feel ready to do that, to take that journey with them? So I would say it's a big thing in that first session, but I think it stays afterwards as well. It's just different in the sense that once I'm in a coaching journey with someone, I
Mhm.
have this trust that is established. And so I kind of know that this person is ready in general. Like they are willing to do this work. So
Right.
my focus goes less on are they ready? Do they want to be out? I know they want to be in. So that kind of tells me that they're resisting this specific thing. Maybe it's this topic, maybe it's this tool, maybe it's my approach. And so that puts me in a like it's easier for me to then understand, okay, there's something about what I'm doing, my own readiness that I can change.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense.
It does makes a lot of sense, and it brings up another thing that I read, and I'm glad you brought it up. It's not just a readiness, the seeing the readiness, but it's the willingness. Like
Yes.
they're ready for it, but the willingness to do the work and what it really means to get into coaching. Right.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
And
You just
I think in that, if I may, Gary, I think there's also a mix of like self-awareness is also very useful in
right.
readiness, in understanding, is this person in front of me, I mean, as a coach, when I'm seeing, is this person in front of me self-aware or not? And oftentimes we were talking before about the gap between what people say and what people do. Oftentimes I find that this is the thing, is that they're not aware that they are behaving in a specific way, like you said, that they don't,
Yeah.
that people don't notice what they're saying. And openness, I would say too, that openness is a big thing. Are they open to change, open to me giving them
Yeah.
feedback, open to like discovering new things about themselves? It's, I think openness is also something.
Yeah. It reminds me of a word that I use, that they're coachable.
Mm,
They
yeah,
have,
coaching.
coachability. Right. And
Mm,
and like you say, there's all kinds of factors, nonverbal and reflective and all that sort of thing. Like, are they coachable? And some people, I'm assigned some people too. So once in a while, and I'll have them sit there and they're basically, okay, what are you going to teach me today? And I tell them almost every time, but I'm also through supervision have found other ways to get answers to how to deal with that kind of situation going forward. Supervision's great, by the way.
do you think then, Gary, like in your vision of coaching, like do you feel that some people are not coachable? Like is that what you would, is that
Yeah,
what you
so I
would
would put that well, so I'm under a mandate to coach people under a certain realm, under career,
yes.
as career satisfaction, not to get out of, but to stay within the organization. And I get a whole bunch of people from this particular
Mm,
company. And some of them come and I don't know what they've been told, but they haven't been told what coaching is. They seem to be coming prepared to be trained.
yes.
They're gonna learn
Mm,
communication skills, or they're gonna learn this, or they're gonna learn that, and that's not what I'm here for. So I have to go take a few steps back and get I mean, don't get me wrong,
mm,
I eventually I get there with them, but it's interesting what they've been told about what coaching is, or some of them are assigned to coach or this program, and they have no idea why. I had one person is like, I have no idea how I got in here. I'm glad I'm here, but I have no idea how I
mm,
got it. So, you know. Interesting. So sometimes they're, to your point, your example about being excited but not ready. They
mm,
don't really, they're excited that they were given this gift, but they're not ready because they don't really know what the gift is. It's like they got the box, but they haven't opened it.
yes. So so then it makes me think, like in what you're saying, it's like saying that they could be coachable. Like if
Yes.
they wanted to, it's possible. It's possible. It's just right now, like right this moment, they aren't. Something like that.
Yeah.
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 Mm, interesting.
Yeah. And I've never lost any one of those clients and to some other coach in the group
Mm,
kind of thing. I just stick with it and, address the situation and remind them and then again, and it's all coaching questions, even that, right?
yes.
So
And
that's
you
really
establish trust through that. I mean, I would assume if I'm in that position that if I come and I don't have the right expectations, and then you work with me and you show me the
yeah.
way to the new other way, I
Yeah.
would feel like I can trust you. Like you, yeah.
Well, and so there's a good point. Do If you come in and you don't think you're ready to work with this client or the client has the readiness to work with you, how much
Mhm.
work will you do to develop readiness?
Yes. Yeah. To me, the coach's readiness is all about that. It's like about asking the question of, am I ready? Not necessarily the capacities too. It's possible that there's a specific type of situation that I'm not able to handle.
Right,
I am privileged enough that I have a specific niche that I work with, and I work on a specific. So it's usually something that I'm used to. So that hasn't happened to me so far in this environment. It could, but that's a possibility too. To not be ready because I don't have the capacity right now to handle the situation. But I'm thinking more in terms of, um, am I ready to take on this type of client? Am I ready or willing to do all this work, to be pushing so much instead of like having a pull type of experience?
right. Yeah.
Um, Something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. That just reminds me of the push pull. When somebody was teaching me about relationships, it was one of my human potential
Mm,
transformation classes. And they said, so relationships are like this. And I said, oh, 50-50. And they said, no, you have to lean in 100% and they have to lean in 100%. It's not
yeah,
50-50 because
yes.
50-50 is kind of over here somewhere, right? Like it's not touching, they're not leaning in. And so for those of you listening, I'm holding my hands together and one side is one person, one side's the other in the relationship. No, that's really cool. You've mentioned a few, but are there any other common misconceptions about coaching readiness that you've encountered? Some examples?
I think we've already kind of talked about them. What I have in my mind is, that some people, some coaches will say that, this idea that what the client says is like what we should work with, and if they say they're ready, then I'm not such a fan of that. I find that I agree to a certain extent that that is the basis, but to at least in my experience, I find that it has its limitations, because then there's a risk that you will be stuck in a loop with them instead of, yeah, addressing the. I would say that was one thing, that I see as a misconception, at least in my mind. And another misconception, it's why I asked you that question as well, Gary, that when
Yeah,
I asked you if you think that there are people who are not coachable at all, and I've
right.
heard that, and I just finished another coaching certification now, and in that program, there was one of my teachers who was saying that she believed that, not everyone is coachable in general, that it is not possible to coach them. But then I've also been trained in the world of Tony Robbins, where the idea behind it is that everyone is coachable. Like, do they want to do it? Do you have, the capacity
Yeah.
to do it? But everyone potentially at some point could be able to be coached. And to me, that's another misconception when I think that, like, I would like to think, maybe it's also my vision of the world and of people, I would like to think that everyone is capable of good things and capable
Yes.
of change. Do they want to do it? I don't know, but I think it is possible.
Yeah.
Um, so
Well,
I would say
and
that.
then yeah, and maybe not every moment of every day,
Yes, yes,
right? So, but at some
exactly.
point, I'm like you, I'm Mr. Positive as well. It's like
Mhm.
I think everybody has good in them. It's just up to us to smile and get it out of them,
Yeah.
and coach them too. I haven't can't say that I've ever had anybody that wasn't coachable.
Mm, I feel the
But
same way. Oh,
yeah.
so, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so, and I'm like you, I think everybody is coachable at some point or another, usually most of the time. And to your previous point, misconception reminds me of kind of like that tip of the iceberg answer, like that.
Mm,
And I'm like that, and I warn my coaches when I have a when I'm working with my coach, any of my coaches, I'll say, remember, don't just stop at the answer I give you.
yes.
force me to dig deeper, right? And I
Yeah.
know already, I just started with a new coach this year, and I already know that the stuff that I talked about in the beginning was really just that little snippet at the top. I want to say tip of the iceberg, but it's a
Yeah.
bit more than that. It to your point, I think the thing you circle around and you don't get out of the loop. And
Yes.
but I'm quick enough to know that I have that loop. So maybe it's
Self-aware.
self-awareness.
Yeah.
And so I'm now into the bigger picture of what I want from my life and how to start developing plans to get there. So, oh my gosh, so obviously we can go on and on. Oh, sorry, what were we gonna say?
No, I would have talked for another 10 minutes on this. So
Right,
I wanted
and
to.
me too. I know. And we don't have another 10
I
minutes.
know. That's
Um,
why I started.
Good noticing. What would Julie, what would you like our audience to do as a result of the article in this conversation? Obviously, you want them to click on that QR code, but what do they get when
Yeah.
they get there?
That's just a link to my About Me page where they can see all the things that I have, whether they want to be coached by me or if they simply want to subscribe to my newsletter. It's free. Every Sunday, I offer some self-empowerment questions and exercises that they
Okay.
can take. So if they're interested, they can do that. But what I'd love for them to, we were talking about this before we started the recording.
There we go.
What
I'm
I
just
love
pulling it up
a lot.
now. Well
um,
done.
Thank you. What I love a lot is thinking critically about things. I have a researcher type of mind. And so I would say that if this article can inspire the wonderful people who listen to us to just think about their coaching practice and how they are ready, or like
Right.
question whether some of their clients aren't ready, and like where is the, like, why is some situation happening. I would say
Mhm.
that that would be the biggest thing. I would love that
Yeah.
if there was something
Yeah.
that could be unlocked through
Some
that.
awareness around readiness of yourself and the client. Well said, bro. Well said. And there's some tips and tricks in there in the article, so please take a look there. And for those that are listening only and not looking at your QR code, what's the best way to reach you? What's the website?
um so I have a website that would be www.ownyourlife.academy. But I would say if you just want to reach out to me and send me a message and talk to me, you can just contact me on LinkedIn. Just type my name. Could you pronounce it in English for me? Because I have the
Uh,
Flemish.
Julie Vander Meulen.
Thank you. So
And you
if
would
you wanted
pronounce, and how would you pronounce it for those of us who are
to,
not in North America?
yes, so I will pronounce it in the French speaking way, but it is a Flemish name. So I say Julie Vander Meulen. And
Wow. See, that's way prettier than what I said.
but it's not recognizable to an Anglophone.
Well, to Canadians, it kind of is because we have Quebec and there's an influence of French. So,
True,
so
true.
it's so that's great. Well, thank you very much, and thank you so much for writing for us. I hear from you that you're thinking of writing some more, so we look forward to that, to reading more of your wisdom and speaking with you on a future podcast. Thanks for being here, Julie.
Thank you so much, Gary.
Thank you for joining us for this Beyond the Page episode. For more episode, subscribe via your favorite podcast app, probably the one that got you here. If you're not a subscriber to Choice Magazine and you're watching this video, you can sign up for a free digital issue by scanning my QR code in the opposite corner, at least on my screen, or by going to choice-online.com and clicking the Sign Up Now button. Thanks again, Julie.
See you, Gary.
I'm Gary Schleifer. Enjoy the journey of mastery.